If you somehow keep ending up around people where you don't feel seen, where you're giving way more than you're receiving, or where you end up secretly resentful, this video is your reset moment. Welcome to People Pleasers Anonymous. No, wait. Welcome back to my channel, where today we're going to talk about the Venus in Aquarius transit, and most importantly, why this is such a potent time to reset your relationships, to decide what you are available for and what you're absolutely no longer willing to tolerate in your relationships, and most importantly, how to make those decisions and resolutions stick. In this video, we're going to talk about why this Venus in Aquarius transit is such a great time to be dealing with these issues. I'm going to help you spot where you are settling for something that you shouldn't be settling for in your relationships. And we're also going to talk about 3 examples where you may wish to up-level your relationships. And I'm going to give you some very powerful tools to do just that. So let's talk about boundaries in relationships, and please tell me if this resonates with you, because I have been through this myself so many times and I have watched so many people struggle with the exact same thing. So step number 1, understanding why boundaries are important. Pretty easy, we can all do that, we can all get on board with that. Step number 2 is deciding where your boundaries lie. Again, pretty straightforward, doable, not an issue. Step number 3, communicating those boundaries with people can get a little bit more tricky depending on the person and how well or not so well you think they're going to take it. But usually once you've done that once or twice, it becomes a lot easier. Again, not the biggest issue. Step number 4, enforcing your boundaries when people sneakily keep trying to push them and keep trying to make you go back on your word. That is the hard part. And that's exactly what I'm going to help you with in this video. Because from January 17th, Venus is already in Aquarius and she's going to stay there until the 10th of February. So it's not the longest of Venus transits, so let's make sure that we truly get everything out of it that we can. Because Venus in Aquarius is going to affect a lot of our relationships. Aquarius is the sign of society, of humanity as a whole, of communities. So we will feel more connected to a lot of people, but on a much more rational and logical plane. There is that emotional detachment that comes with Aquarius energy, which makes it a great time to talk about boundaries, to up-level your standards in relationships, because there is just not so much of the emotional baggage that comes with it. You try to do the same thing while Venus is in Aries, you're going to have a much more difficult time. So now is the perfect practice ground, because the potential for things to go a little bit sideways is a lot smaller. And if you can do it while it's easy, then next time you can do it when it's a little bit harder. But before we can upgrade your standards, first we need to become perfectly honest on where it is in your relationships that you're settling. And you may wish to grab a journal for this, or maybe your notes app on your phone, or the voice memos app on your phone, and just think about what comes to mind when we're talking about relationships in which you are settling for less than you deserve. Some examples. Maybe there are certain relationships where people constantly cancel on you last minute. Maybe there's a relationship where you are consistently carrying the emotional labor and the other person just isn't available for you in the same way that you're available to them. Maybe it's a relationship where you are constantly dealing with subtle or not so subtle criticism. Maybe it's one where the communication level just isn't where you would hope it would be and where you'd expect it to be. And now let's flip it to the other side. What are some examples of some relationship behaviors that you truly appreciate, that you value when other people show them towards you and make you feel loved and appreciated and valued as a person? Some examples could be people who check up on you from time to time. Maybe it's a certain way that someone communicates with you, or a certain frequency at which they communicate with you. Maybe it's someone being respectful for your time or for your mental energy and for your emotional capacity that you have. And then look at those 2 lists, or consider those 2 lists and the 2 sides of the extreme, so to say. And then look at those 2 and consider somewhere along the line is going to be where your boundary is. Somewhere along the line is going to be that cutoff point of what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not willing to tolerate. And most of us never really take the time to consider that, to consider where that point is. We kind of just slide into certain relationship dynamics and hope for the best. So this is your moment to consciously choose. So now let's look at 3 concrete standards to up-level in your relationships and how to do that. First one is a really, really big one because this applies to so many of us, and it's how you're being spoken to. Words are really, really important, and we always stress about how important self-talk is and to talk positively to ourselves. But at the same time, it's equally important not to surround ourselves with people who are constantly diminishing us, who are making jokes at our expense, or who are just being downright rude. With Venus in Aquarius, we might be tempted to just, step out of those relationships in general. And if these are friendships, then yes, that's something that you can do. But what if it's a family member? What if it's a work colleague or maybe a boss who is talking to you in a way that you really don't appreciate being spoken to, but you can't just remove yourself from the situation? That's just not an option. First of all, let me reassure you, asking for basic respect is not being too much, is not being too sensitive, and is not having too high standards. If it's someone like a partner, somebody that you're very close to, a very close friend, even a family member, then I would highly encourage you to seek out conversation with that person and to explain that, the jokes that you're making at my expense are really not funny. I'd appreciate it if you stopped. I'd appreciate it if you could communicate with me in such and such way. I'd appreciate if you could respect me and value me with the way that you are communicating, just like I respect you and value you with the way I communicate with you. The other thing that you can do is a technique and a tip that I learned from Marissa Peer, who's quite a famous hypnotherapist. And this works so brilliantly. Every time I've done it, it's worked brilliantly. I have given out this advice to so many people. Every time they've done it, it works amazing. And this works particularly well when it's somebody that you work with or somebody that you're not really close enough to have an emotional conversation with. When they're being rude and disrespectful to you without, any sharpness in your tone or without getting particularly defensive, just say to them, "Sorry, what did you say? Can you repeat that? I didn't catch that." This works so well. So well. 99% of the time, they will not repeat what they said because they are fully aware that what they said was rude, was disrespectful, and was totally out of order. And they will not go through humiliating themselves by saying that thing to you again. On the odd occasion that they do repeat it, you can then counter that with, "Are you trying to hurt my feelings?" And I promise you, it completely blindsides them. People do not know how to react to that. They do not know how to react to being called out in such a direct way without the ability to counter that, to accuse you of anything, because they cannot. You're just asking a question. And in the vast, vast majority of cases, they will not do that again because they don't want to risk being called out. And you might need to say it a couple of times. "Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't catch that. Sorry, I couldn't hear you then. Can you say that again?" Honestly, this tip is amazing. I highly, highly recommend that you do that next time someone's being rude to you. The second standard that we're going to upgrade is how your time and your energy are being respected. Maybe this is people who constantly make last-minute changes to your plans. Maybe it's people who don't respect your emotional capacity and are constantly trauma dumping onto you, or just dumping their bad moods onto you. And then they'll be like, "Oh, it helps me so much to talk things through with you." I'm sure it does, but at the same time, you have limited emotional capacity and you can't be everyone's therapist. Maybe it's people who are expecting you to always be available for them and will make you feel guilty or shame you into not responding to them straight away. And again, let me start this by reassuring you your time and your energy are precious. They are sacred. Yes, of course, we want to be there for our friends and for our family members and to the people that matter to us. But there are limits. And that's why we wanted to set those limits earlier on in the first exercise that we did, so that you know where that boundary is. And this is one where you need to be vigilant, because this is one where people tend to kind of creep up on you. You do communicate that maybe you don't appreciate these things, or that you're only available at a certain time or on a certain day, and they will try, and they will like sneakily try to weasel their way back into your life and past that boundary that you so clearly set with them. Great way to handle that is saying something like, I really care about you, I care about what you're going through, but I do not have the time and the capacity to have a long conversation at the moment. If it's someone who constantly cancels on you last minute, you may wish to make it their responsibility to plan the next thing that you're going to be doing together, and don't go out of your way to accommodate them the next time. This is one where you do need to be vigilant, because just one time never remains just one time. And then the third standard that we're going to upgrade is how much of yourself you are actually bringing to a relationship. If you feel like there's a relationship where you have to hide a part of yourself, and this is especially important in friendships and in romantic partnerships, we can leave out the work relationships because a lot of us show up as a version of ourselves to work. It's a bit of a different thing. But in friendships, in romantic partnerships, you cannot be showing up as a edited and curated to their tastes version of you. You need to be able to bring your full self. Otherwise, that relationship, let me tell you now, is not worth your time and your effort. If you feel like you have to censor your emotions, your ambition, your spirituality, or maybe your sensitivity, that relationship is not for you, because it is limiting and stunting your growth. But at the same time, you do want to give people a chance. So do communicate to them. Do say to them, this part of myself, it's important for me that I can talk about my ambition, my spirituality, my emotions, whatever it may be. It's a part of me, and I want to be able to talk about that, and I don't want to have to hide that. And see how they react. If the other person is dismissive, or if they say, yes, okay, but then they continue to berate you and belittle you whenever you bring that part of yourself up, then it might be time for the very famous Venus in Aquarius move to step out of that relationship. And to no longer put all of that effort and all of that energy into censoring yourself and making yourself a pleasant version to that other person. If they can't handle the full version of you, they're not worth that time and that energy. Because there are other people who love the full version of you, who appreciate it, who want to hear you talk about your passions, who don't want you to censor yourself and to curate yourself for them. And you cannot make connections with those people while you're busy with the other ones who aren't appreciating you for who you are. So let this Venus in Aquarius transit be your reminder that you are allowed to want relationships in which your individuality and your authenticity are respected and cherished. And upgrading your relationship standards to reflect that doesn't mean that you're rejecting people. It means that you're no longer rejecting yourself. So if you feel comfortable, share in the comments below what relationship pattern you're ready to upgrade and what you are no longer tolerating. Also, if you'd like more of a deep dive into the relationship patterns showing up in your natal chart, you can book a one-to-one consultation with me. I have a variety of different ones available. You can find them all on my website, which I have linked in the description below. Also, if you'd like some powerful journaling prompts, some ritual ideas, and a lot of juicy news related to how to manifest your dream life using the current astrology, tapping into these energies as and when they are at their most powerful, then make sure that you sign up for my newsletter. It's completely free to join. You can also find the link to that in the description bar below. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos if this resonated with you, and I'll see you next week.